Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you happen to be around the world. And this is yet another long delayed Groovy Podcast. My name is Ken Kousen. I'm podcasting from New Orleans, Louisiana, home of the ApacheCon open source conference, where we just had a Groovy track, ApacheCon 2022, I suppose I should say. The Groovy track was arranged by, be my guest,
Paul King. So I've come from Australia to attend a wonderful Apache conference over the last 4 days. And the last couple of days, we had the Groovy track, and we even had more Groovy, Grails, and Micronaut content prior to that as well in some of the other tracks. So it's been an exciting couple of days.
You probably gave half a dozen talks, right?
Something like that.
And none of them were about Grails?
None of them were about Grails, but it's a nice t-shirt.
Yes,
So,
definitely a nice t-shirt. We are also accompanied by the current head of the Grails framework at OCI.
Yep. Hi, I'm Puneet. I traveled all the way from India to ApacheCon, and it's been an exciting experience so far. And it's good to meet Ken in person finally.
Again, and it's like had the temerity to say during one of his talks that he thought he was the youngest person in the room, which was probably true. Only somebody that young and inexperienced would make a comment like that.
That's right.
Anyway, we also have another leader at OCI, this time for the Micronaut project.
Yeah, I'm Zachary Klein. And so I also work at Object Computing in St. Louis, Missouri on the 2GM team. And I'm mostly working with Micronaut, doing a lot of cloud stuff, working with event-driven architectures. And that was pretty much what I talked about, event-driven architecture and using Micronaut with Groovy. So
yeah, today's talk that you gave was actually the intro Micronaut one, as I recall.
intro, yeah, more introductory to Micronaut, but specific with Groovy. That's why I could talk about Gorm. Things like that would not normally be in a Micronaut talk.
Probably be more about integration between Micronaut and Groovy, right?
Yeah, but also some showing how the HTTP client works, how the ahead of time compilation works. So it was more introductory.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time these days with Spring Boot,
Mhm.
sadly, and mostly in Java,
Sure.
But whenever people talk about Micronaut or Grails, then the issue of Spring Boot comes, how does it compare to this, that, and the
Yep.
other? Like you were talking about Gorm and Gorm being, again, for those who are not aware, do they still call it the Grails object relational mapping
Yeah.
tool? So
Yeah.
it's got the word Grails in it, even though it's being used in Micronaut and other
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
At any rate, the question always comes up, how does it relate to Spring Data? How does it relate to Spring
Sure.
Boot? All of those issues. And you were dealing with some of those directly. I think, boy, you spent a lot of time actually on the multi-tenancy part, as I recall.
Yeah, it's one of the features that I just personally find really fascinating and really powerful in Gorm. It's a difficult problem, multi-tenancy, and a lot of other persistence frameworks don't have any explicit help. You can obviously still implement it yourself, but the ability to have these annotations and opt out of being in a tenant and specify your tenant and have the framework take care of making, whether it's resolving a header or a cookie or subdomain and passing that along back to your persistence layer. It's a really, really elegant solution, I think, to that problem. And so if I was looking at a multi-tenant system and I was considering what stack I was going to use, that would be a major factor that would lean me towards using Gorm. And if I'm talking Micronaut, that would be a Groovy Micronaut Gorm stack, which would be a lot of fun.
I think you brought up Micronaut data as well, as a
Yeah.
relationship to Spring Data, right?
It's more akin to Spring Data, I think, from what I've seen. And it's not as featureful as Gorm.
Right.
And multi-tenancy just doesn't.
But it
cover
works
that.
with NoSQL databases.
But it works in NoSQL databases, and it's going to be higher performance. That's because it's even less memory usage. It's totally pre-computed queries. So Micronaut data is awesome. Micronaut data is I think we call it data access toolkit. So it's not necessarily a full persistence framework. It's not a swap in for Hibernate, for example. It's really aimed at fast queries and pre-computation. And it does persistence as well, but it's not really its strength. Whereas Gorm is, everything in the kitchen sink.
Now, as I recall, you probably back me up on it. It was a lot of people here for that basic Micronaut talk. There was a lot of enthusiasm for that. That was nice.
correct.
Yeah. There were several.
Yeah.
You also talked about with Grails. Actually, it wasn't just with Grails. First, you gave the basic Grails talk,
Right.
and then you gave a really advanced, hey, let's do our own AST transformation type talk.
I think that
Yeah.
that was the third. The second one was more about how Grails actually uses AST or meta programming capabilities of Groovy to
Right.
basically provide
Yeah.
you the features. So it's more like you gave introduction in the first talk. These are the features Grails provide, how those work. Under the hood, and then lastly you'd probably write something else. On the Micronaut side of it
Mhm.
to get you the some kind of a convention or configuration.
And it
behavior.
eventually worked, right?
That was intentional.
Oh,
He threw in
yeah,
he
that
told
was
me in
on
advance. He
purpose.
threw in a couple of seed.
Let's make
bugs.
lemonade out of those lemons. That's right, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, I did notice you doing what I always do when I talk about Groovy and Paul's in the room. You keep glancing over to see, am I saying it right? Is this correct? And you were saying a few things about the
No, I think this
metaprogramming.
was something hidden. I mean, we actually initially I had a similar bug. So while I was preparing for the talk, and then the silly mistake I did was like instead of having a package name, folder like meta-inf/services, I had like meta-inf dot services. So that was actually the complete folder name, which did not work for the first time. So I tried to do the same in the demo, and then I realized probably I have done the same mistake, and that's why I have looked at him again to see that's the same silly mistake I did over.
It was a typo, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, right.
I was gonna say something, but I figured, no, I'll just let you flounder up there, yeah. But no, it was, I mean, some people were kind of lost. I mean, that was really deep, but a lot of people found it interesting. I think one of them said that it did remove some of the magic, that you just know is happening under the hood, but you don't know, especially in the first one, you talked about both runtime metaprogramming and
Right,
compile
compile
time
time,
AST
right.
transforms as well.
Yeah, I could have probably renamed that to demystifying, Grails magic, something like that.
Oh, give it a different title?
Yeah,
Just to-
probably, yeah.
Yeah, but most people don't want to see maybe it's how to do your own Grails magic. Or
Right,
something. Yeah,
that was the
right.
goal. I mean, right, the goal was not like how Grails do it. Probably you could just apply that knowledge. I'm like, it was more to showcase, like how powerful the Groovy is, or what you can do.
Yeah, maybe I should have paid attention. I don't. No, it was very good. It was very interesting. Now, of course, Paul talked about, I don't know, 10 different things. I mean, and including one talk where he said, this is only supposed to talk about 2 completely unrelated things, and I'm going to talk about 4, right?
Oh, 3 at least. But
Well,
yeah.
that was the property-based testing.
Mutation testing. I thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, so anyway, just to let people know, you did property-based testing with Quick, which I really like.
It's great. Yeah, they just had a new release as well. And when we get to talk about releases in the Groovy ecosystem, it's sort of it's not really a unique to Groovy, but we like it in the Groovy community. And yeah, so I was showing you how you might use it with or without Spock. So I thought that people might want to know those sort of thing.
It sounded like, I need to see the code, but it sounded like in the Spock part where you wanted to use Quick, you kind of relied on the arbitraries class, that API instead of using any of the annotations.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's a provider. Then.
So it's got 2 layers built into it, and you use one of the layers because Spock is providing one of the layers in the other scenario. So.
And the other one was called PyTest or something. That's the
Yeah, there's a few mutation testing frameworks. PyTest seems to be one of the ones that's and it's actually by some friends of the Groovy community in past lives. Marcin, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Marcin.
Marcin. You'll know about it.
Yeah, his last name, man, I can't remember.
I can visually see it, but I'm not sure how to pronounce it either.
And we have like 4 Marcins in this community. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah.
it's there's friends of the Groovy community who are involved in that, and it's more active than some of the other ones I've used in the past. And it's
and Johannes Link also is the head of the Quick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, these are all very useful tools that we like. The mutation testing stuff is geared more at mutating Java classes, and so it's not so good at if you do dynamic Groovy class and you try to mutate that, you're probably going to struggle.
Right.
But if you like doing a Spock test and a Java class you're testing, it works really well. And there's a very limited range of Groovy classes where you might make some mileage, but it would be really nice if we could pursue more classes that way. It would be very nice to add that support.
I'm trying to remember what some of your other talks were. There were a lot.
Well, we joined together for a bit of a mini Groovy data science workshop. So
Yeah.
we covered just, there's a lot of benefits for using Groovy in that sort of scenario. Groovy sort of gives you becomes sort of the Python level experience in the JVM world in terms of simplified code that a data scientist might want to use, and lots of libraries that make their life easy, and talks to lots of Java frameworks.
That led to an interesting question. Remember that one guy, you said basically Groovy was like the Python on the JVM.
Yeah.
And he immediately took that literally. He started to talk, oh, is it like Python this, that? And the-"
Well,
No,
yeah.
it's filling the role, not the actual.
Yeah. I mean, you can go get Jython if you want,
But yeah.
you're going to struggle with that. So
No, what was funny, the part 2 that I did of that was the genetic algorithms part.
yeah, that was really good.
Oh, good. Because I never was sure about that one, because it's just a couple of libraries, and a lot of my examples were in this old language called Java or whatever, although I did borrow your Groovy example. We did the Shakespeare one,
Yeah.
The methinks I am it. No, it methinks it is a weasel, I think is the
Well, yeah.
phrase that from Hamlet, I actually had a follow-up on that. I am one of those sad people who tweets his Wordle solution every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I got a reply today saying, oh, and now I know you're using genetic algorithms. to solve it." And I replied, it's all in the genes. But yeah, I can't think of a less efficient way to solve that problem. And that would really be hard to do. But yeah, so I did the genetic algorithms one, and that went really well. That was surprisingly. What else did you talk about?
I did a bit of regression. So if you want to buy a house, it'll help you predict your house prices, and then a bit of clustering, which I believe there's a whiskey boff somewhere about to start in now that the conference is over, and it might be quite applicable to classify and cluster all your whiskey flavorings. So that might come in handy a bit later on.
That was actually really cool, because that whole talk was about I forget where the source of your data was. You said there are many data sets there.
For the whiskey or the house price?
No, the house prices. What?
Oh yeah, that Kaggle.
Yeah, right. Kaggle or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so you downloaded a ton of data, and then we're basically doing regression testing on it and multivariate ones. I think what they call factor analysis or something in statistics, to find the eigenvalues, if you will. I mean, anyway, to find the primary mechanisms. And of course, none of them work. There was no good predictor.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, your one example with the house with 33 rooms in it, that's a typo. I mean, it was 6,000 square feet, man. It's gonna be hard to fit 33 rooms into 6,000. That's gotta be a 3, right? That just got bad data that crept in.
Oh,
Yeah, multi-story.
I mean, that's what the
What's that?
It could be a multi-story home.
Okay, yeah, but you're from India, so I guess that makes, 33 rooms and my
No,
goodness.
it's,
so the examples on Kaggle.
mine is like 3 rooms with 6,000 square feet.
Yeah, well, you're.
So I'm from India.
Yeah.
But the point is it more and more.
I'm pretty sure it's a typo. So the data sets on Kaggle
Sorry,
often have they're not
bad data. Yeah.
yeah they don't necessarily have fully clean data, and
Right.
that's part of the exercises that you go in and clean it, and that's what we were illustrating.
But the really good part of that is that it looked like using the tools to play with the data was fun. I mean, it looked like, oh yeah, here I can make this graph. I can look at it this way. We can clean it like that, show this, rotate it in 3D. It looked like it was like, oh, I want to go do that. And I think somebody tweeted they were going to do that after your talk. Yeah.
Oh, well, I actually think they were actually not unrelated to the talk. They were doing stuff that's overlaps, and they were doing that in their real life on some other data set.
Yeah, I can't
So that-
remember the
that
name
was-
of that tool, but
that was cool.
yeah.
Hmm.
Trying to think what else you talked about. I mean, I know I did one.
So I did the Groovy update.
Oh,
as
right,
well.
the Groovy 4 update to talk about the features in 4, right?
Yeah, so Groovy 405 is the latest version of Groovy. I'll probably do a release a couple of days after I get back home, maybe multiple versions with some bug fixes in earlier versions. So it won't be the latest by the time some people hear this, but 405 is the latest, and I was giving an update on all the features in 4. It's a much more streamlined Groovy with lots of nice features, language integrated query, and a whole range of other stuff that people should find very useful. So that was exciting.
As I recall, there's a really extensive set of release notes on 4 that you can really find out all the details.
Yeah.
All on the Groovy website.
Yep.
There was a lot of interest in Groovy, although it's a low level, but the people who were here were pretty enthusiastic, I thought.
Yeah, I was trying to do there's half the audience wanted all the details, and the other half, I think, they were just wanting to know
What the heck is this Groovy
what's
thing?
this Groovy
Yeah.
thing, and should I come and touch it at all?
Yeah.
And they just wanted to get the sound bites for, why would I even bother? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. And so hopefully they got enough of the information they were after, the two different groups.
Definitely. I might talk on functional programming in Groovy, Java, and over under our time now, Kotlin, right?
Yep.
That filled the room because there were people interested in the other languages as well.
Yeah.
So it's a wedge, the way to get in there. So that was good.
But you didn't cover the monad transformers or the endo
God.
functors, so I'm not.
I put in a slide,
apart from
right?
that- Oh, you did. Yes.
Monad is a monoid in the category of endofunctors or whatever. What's the problem? Something
Yep.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Someday, and that day may never come, I'll have you explain
Explain
that
it all
stuff
to
to
you,
me.
okay.
Yeah, Oh, well, I got away with it so far. There were a couple other talks from people who are not with it, sitting here right now. The guy from Spain, from Madrid, Jorge.
Okay,
All right.
I can't remember his last name, but
I looked up on the schedule. It's Jorge Aguilera. Sorry, Jorge, if I got that wrong.
That's the right name. Yeah, there's probably a more Spanish way to pronounce
More
pronounce
Spanish?
it, but I won't attempt it either.
Aguilera.
but he was giving his first talk ever, right? Or
First international talk.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And he was talking on Google, so
Yeah.
it's all a nice, really nice Groovy DSL he's written to talk to all the Google APIs, and
Right.
he's done in Groovy. You can do very, very simple and dynamic DSLs, or you can make them richer with typing information and so forth. And he's done a lot of the work putting that extra typing information in, so that you're sitting in your IDE. He was in IntelliJ, and he was getting quite rich completion as he was playing with the API. And
Yeah, Google's a mashup of the words Google and Groovy, and basically it's a Groovy DSL for accessing services from Google, like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Gmail, right?
Yeah.
And the demo I think he did created, downloaded the astronomy picture of the day,
yeah,
and created a spreadsheet and added it to the spreadsheet, and then sent an email all in a dozen lines.
yeah.
It was a very
impressive.
compelling demo.
Yeah,
I think- I
and
think
he
that
did
was-
fine.
That was the only talk I was in that got two rounds of applause before he finished. Just over the demo.
Yeah.
People really were enjoying it.
Well, and people
Yeah.
were also trying to encourage the guy.
Sure.
He said he was new at this, and we're a friendly group, so
Absolutely.
make sure he felt welcome,
But it deserved the applause.
Oh, yeah, it was
Oh, yeah,
excellent.
so-
No, I don't mean to imply, yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely deserved it.
Well, and I liked his point as well at the end about a more commercial usage of creating these DSLs. That's one of the features I think that we'll often mention it when talking about Groovy. That's great for DSLs,
Hmm.
but I think it's kind of abstract for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And seeing one and seeing both it in use and looking under the covers. Same with your talk, Puneet.
Right.
I think that was really engaging for a lot of the folks there. They could kind of see, oh, this is why Groovy is so powerful, and why I might consider using it for a case like this.
Now, I did a talk at the end on Gradle, which was a lot of basic stuff, but it's stuff that people need to know to use it. But of course, both.
I had a good lesson out of that. Maven clean install, something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what
Every time.
the main message was, something like that.
We put in a slide specifically for Andres Almire, to emphasize that, Andres says Maven clean install, and then we fixed it. Don't worry, we made it Maven verify. Yes, just to be sure. But yeah, that was specifically for poor Andres, who was supposed to be here. So, these sorts of things happen when you make a commitment and then go to Morocco.
Well, no, he didn't make a commitment.
Oh,
but he told me up front that he had a Moroccan engagement planned at the time, and he
Yeah.
apologized. But yeah, we would have really loved him to be here as well, but yeah.
Now, also on the Gradle front, Hans Doctor was here doing a keynote on good old developer productivity engineering, right? The new thing in their conference, and how, actually take it seriously, the Gradle Enterprise is available for open source projects.
Yeah.
And they're very supportive of the
Well, actually,
community.
there was an announcement
Yeah.
during the conference.
Right.
It's, and I'm glad it's actually moving ahead, because Groovy was going to be the first guinea pig.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's been sitting on my plate to find some time to become the guinea pig for like 6 months now, or maybe more. And now there's another Apache, I think it's Apache Tika, is going to be the guinea pig
For,
using Gradle Enterprise in
okay.
the Apache ecosystem. We'll be there and using it too, but as a guinea pig, infrastructure folks were very keen to sort of also be involved, and so they could understand what happens when projects start hitting this thing with really big bills and so on, so that when they're going to be administrating these sorts of services.
I think Grails and Micronaut are already.
Oh yeah,
enterprise, right?
but in the Apache
The Apache
ecosystem, which is
Software
the conference we're in, that was announced that Gradle Enterprise is going to be on premises, but in the cloud, really, but under the Apache banner. Yeah.
That'll be pretty cool.
So yeah, that should be quite good.
So it was a very good conference. I can't think, we're not leaving out anything major, are we? Am I forgetting anything?
We had a Groovy BOF.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, right.
We've tasted a little bit of the New Orleans cuisine in our spare time, and there's been a few speaker dinners and welcome receptions and other things that the city's been very welcoming to us, and the organizers have organized a bunch of stuff, so it's all been good.
And a very friendly community. I think we had a really good time.
Yeah.
Let's keep this relatively short. So we wanted to talk about some of the releases as well, some of the updates that have come out
Yes,
recently.
I talked about 405,
Right.
But we want to hear about Micronaut and Grails too, I guess. So
You wanna go first?
So, yeah, I'll go first. So we recently released Grails 5.2, or to be exact, 5.2.4, where we actually moved from Groovy 307 to 310, and there are a bunch of improvements or dependency upgrades in the Grails world. And yeah, that's more about releases, but we have a lot of plans for future about Grails and Micronaut integration, how that would come out, like more and more coupling. Like, I think one of the tasks in my to-do list is experiment with Micronaut Servlet with Grails.
Oh,
So that would be fun, and yeah.
and what's the JDK version? Is it still on 1.8?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So we are still on 1.8, but we are working towards Grails 6, which probably supports Groovy 4, and Java 11 would be the base version for that.
If you're gonna go to 11, you might as well, no, I don't want to open up that can of worms again. Sure, you don't want to go all the way to 17,
Yeah, it's not basically up to me. It's just we have an engineering meeting and all that, Grails Foundation.
Yeah,
So
I'm in that meeting.
Yeah, you're right. So
That's
yeah.
why I say I don't want to open up the can of worms, and then I opened it. Yep. That's what I'd say.
it's, I mean, as developers, we're sort of often keen to get the latest and greatest of everything.
Right.
But we've got to remember that there's some of our other users of our technologies are still on.
No way.
Yeah, it's still on old tech versions. So we want to move forward, but we just do it at a slow pace and just keep moving forward and let the community sort of slowly catch up.
And I think it's more about, what features do we really want of 17 to be, why do we need to do that? That's also something,
No, it's all very reasonable. I do hope we're able to upgrade to 11 without too much trouble.
Right.
From what I understand from the statistics these days is that the Java community is rapidly shifting over to 11.
Mhm.
Probably by the end of the year, I'll bet it'll be 60-70% of the community is on 11 by then.
Yep.
And then next year will be even better. And of course, you're not talking about 6 until, months
Right.
away.
Yeah, but so when you talk about like Groovy, it's not that we don't run on
Right.
Yeah,
RT,
right.
It's just our minimum version is
Right.
if you want to go run on 8,
Yeah,
you can do it,
right.
and you may not get all the features that you might have when you're on 17, 18, 19, but we'll still let you do that. And then next version of Groovy will probably be on 11, and then the one after that will probably be on 17. So
Right. And then Micronaut, did you want to?
Yeah.
There was certainly a release, and then a couple of like
Yeah,
bug
so-
fixes release or
So
something.
the major release that's recent is 3.7. That was late last month, and then there's been one patch release since then. So we're at 3.7.1. And the big ticket features with 3.7 is some big improvements to the Micronaut Spring integration, and that's in both directions. So
Spring Boot.
Spring Boot,
right.
so there's a Spring Boot starter for Micronaut.
Yep.
And that's to allow you to use Micronaut features within Spring Boot, as well as improvements in the Spring support in Micronaut. So
That's just so
whichever
bizarre.
direction.
Is-
Well, a lot of folks are invested in Spring, and we're not, even though, we compare Micronaut and Spring and Spring Boot and so forth, but a lot of folks are going to be using Spring indefinitely, and this gives the option both to use things like that HTTP client or Micronaut data
Right.
within a Spring Boot context, as well as the ability to more easily use Spring libraries within Micronaut.
I mean, it's a really good plan because Spring Boot is still by far
Oh, yeah.
the definitive framework in the
It's
Java
the standard,
space,
yeah,
purely
exactly.
Java. Yeah, I mean, Quarkus, I'm too cynical. I like to say in a world where we have Micronaut, why do we even need Quarkus? But to be more honest, I know, but it's still there and they're doing reasonably well. I hope Micronaut is gaining.
We like diversity. Yeah.
That's right, exactly.
They did have a whole keynote about
Really?
diversity and inclusion. So yes, and by the way, that we are very diverse and welcome community. Well, we're an international community. We're not as diverse as we would like to be.
Mm.
Please do not hesitate to get involved. And if you have any bad experience or anything, please let us know. We really want more people feeling welcome well, let's just say as different as can be from who we are, so
Yes.
that's always better for everybody. Glad to have you along. Anyway, so Micronaut, I thought the releases were good. I thought the fascinating idea of converting from Spring Boot to
Mhm.
Micronaut, because you're going to get a million questions on that,
I think it also opens up a window for some users to use more compelling features of Micronaut in their Spring Boot applications, like
Right.
HTTP client, which I personally feel is, I don't see any, competitor out there.
Well,
yet.
the HTTP client is, I loved your demo of that, because
Mhm.
you just throw an interface, or did you do that one? One of you
Yeah,
did that.
he
Yeah, you did the
did,
demo
right.
with the
Yeah.
HTTP client. You just throw an annotation on an interface and suddenly it's all implemented. You're ready
Yeah,
to go.
right.
And yeah, that is so much easier. Now, it's not exactly difficult in Spring Boot to
No,
instantiate the client, but
it provides a lot of other features as well, like, retry mechanism,
Yeah.
There are a whole bunch of, features with, which comes with Micronaut HTTP client and, that's.
And there's benefits to using those in a Spring Boot context.
well, and whenever I do Spring Data, people get all excited about these dynamic finders. And I'm like, this is one
Old
tiny
news,
piece
buddy.
of what Gorm has done for 10 years, it's like, but hopefully that will help bring people
Yeah.
along. By the way, how is OCI in general doing? I mean, we've got 3 people here who are associated with it, and I notice they're still hiring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that trying to tell you something or?
Look us up. We're still hiring. We're still growing.
Still
Yeah.
growing. Yep.
Although I noticed
added
on
a
your
few new
slides,
team
you
members.
don't say OCI, you say Object Partners now.
object
Object
computing.
computing.
Object
Yeah,
computing,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's object computing,
Don't
IXC.
don't mention the competition. Yeah.
Free advertising. No,
Oops. Yeah,
great
we'll
guys
edit,
at Object Partners too.
we'll edit that out. Yeah.
Okay, great.
If we had production values,
Yeah.
we would fix that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So at any rate, object computing is the logo now, and that seems to be what comes up. I don't hear the, do you still use
Oh,
the
we
phrase
still use
OCI?
OCI, yeah.
Abbreviate.
I often say, so for me, it's this whole Oracle cloud infrastructure thing. That's
Oh,
kind of
right.
overloaded the term OCI. So I've
Yes.
been saying object computing more often because of that.
Freaking Oracle. I mean, if they didn't employ people like Graham Roche.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. Well, speaking of Oracle, though.
Speaking of
it's
Oracle.
actually a good segue.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well played.
You're welcome.
So just this week, the Micronaut Foundation announced its first engineering partnership, and that the partner is Oracle. So a number of core committers to Micronaut work at Oracle. Graham Roche being one of them. Bert
Hmm.
Beckwith.
Right.
I think I'm forgetting.
Alvaro.
Alvaro Sanchez?
Cedric.
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 Oh, right.
Very
Cedric's
good, yeah.
involved.
There's a bunch.
So yeah,
It says Cedric Champeau for people who are not aware.
and then Oracle also, of course, has been investing a lot in Graal VM. And so in
Graal,
their-
right.
in their announcement, that was actually one of the points that they brought up, was that the synergy between Micronaut and Graal VM is very important to them. And that's another one of the kind of distinguishing features, I think, of Micronaut, is just that it's
I
kind of
don't know.
made for Graal VM.
In
Native
every
images,
Micronaut,
code on
Native
that.
images,
Yeah.
sorry,
I said like native
Native
images,
image, yeah.
right?
In every talk I give for Micronaut, I mean, I don't, but if I did, I would bring up that 7 millisecond startup
Yeah,
time, man.
it
That
is
was
insane. It
gaslight,
is
you know?
insane.
Oh, yeah, here, watch this. Click. Oh, I clicked already. It's up. You know, it's like, that was just
Yeah.
incredible to do. Anyway, for those who haven't seen it, it's a Micronaut demo that I think Graham did a couple of years ago or whatever, and using the native image tool from the Grail virtual machine,
Right.
compiled a Micronaut app down to native code, and you just hit enter and
Yeah.
it was up. And Java people just aren't used to that, you know?
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Well, that's why I had one slide in my Groovy update
Yep.
that was Grail VM with Groovy. And
Right.
it's-
So how's that
it
coming?
pulled up,
That's something exciting.
it pulled up a whole classification of iris flowers data set,
Hmm.
classified it all, gave you the results, did everything in 16 milliseconds.
Yeah, so
Way to
even
go.
through in an AI, it's almost like you're,
Yep.
it's like buzzword bingo to find the right words to get accepted at a conference paper, and you have
That's right.
native image and AI
AI,
classification.
Machine learning.
Hopefully someday Groovy.
It used to be blockchain, but no one cares.
Oh, yeah,
about that.
block- No,
Just that one.
that's a reject. You know, we
That's a
reject that one, yeah. Okay, so what else? Anything else you want to bring
While
up?
we're on Micronaut Foundation, HiveMQ was also a recent sponsor.
Yeah, they joined as a bronze level corporate sponsor
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the foundation, so they're helping to contribute to the foundation, and yeah,
So it's all going rosy, and we've got a Grails Foundation that's going well as well.
Yeah.
So it's all looking good.
And then in terms of releases, I know Spock did a
2.3.
2.3 release recently, right? And
Yep. So that was in my talk today.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, you did,
Latest JQuick Yeah.
it's 1.7 now, I think, right? Or 1.7.0 or something like that?
170. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 1.7.0.
And
Yeah.
latest Groovy, latest Spock. Yep.
And then there was, I think Jeb went to, what's it, 4 or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
You know, certainly since the last time we had a Groovy podcast, you know, which is, you know,
Yeah, I think
it
it's.
was
for-
this decade. I don't know. It gives Sergio a hard time for something, but you know.
Mhm.
And then any other major releases we want to mention?
I think they're the main ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gradle
those
is up to
highlights.
7.5.1, but I'm not even sure I classify them as a Groovy project anymore, really. I mean,
Yeah,
they
but-
are, but
They've got a branch that's got Groovy 4 in it with running Gradle. So that'll probably won't be till Gradle 8, I imagine. But
all I know is when when Java 19 came out, I do what I always do. I tried just to do it on my existing code. And Gradle didn't want to build with it at first, but it got better.
yeah. So we just the latest 3.0, what are we up to 13, whatever it was that just came out. Will be in 7.6, and you'll have up to the very latest.
So 7.6, which,
Can you just repeat that? That's
Oh, yeah.
Gradle 3?
The next, I think it's not out yet. It might be in Alpha or Milestone or something. I'm not sure. 7.6.
Gradle
is
7.6.
the next one.
Yeah.
It's got, I believe it's got the next version of Groovy in it, so you'll get a bump on all of your JDK versioning.
I think
Because
there's
it's got-
something they did where they tightly coupled Groovy version when you create a Gradle plugin. So that's where I was curious, like, if they have
No.
updated the Groovy to 3.0.
This is more the JDK that you'll be running your Gradle build with.
Right.
yeah, they have not moved to Groovy 4 yet.
No,
in the
that's the-
Gradle distribution.
But they've got a
so-
branch now that runs. it.
Oh, I get it.
They were taking they've got a very sophisticated CI infrastructure, as you imagine. They've got
Yeah,
lots of
right.
customers doing lots of stuff, and it was a little bit tricky to get that CI infrastructure to work with multi versions of Groovy, especially with the org Apache Groovy, Maven coordinate change, as well as the Codehouse ones, so that
Right.
they'd hard coded a bunch of stuff in their build files, and now that's all been rectified, and it's on a path that they'll eventually have Groovy 4 in probably Gradle 8 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Groovy 4 is where the coordinate change, the Maven coordinates went to org Apache
Correct.
Groovy
Yeah.
officially, and
Officially.
I forgot how many people are going to still be trying to get to Codehouse and going, wait a minute, there's no Codehouse anymore, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's there,
I
but
think-
it's still at 3.
I think there's something
Yeah.
someone mentioned in the Gradle team that you could some sort of
Yeah, yeah.
redirect if you still have corridors, it'll,
We've got
tell you.
we've got that sort of stuff set up in our Gradle build, but
Ah.
there's more we can do on the Maven side
Right,
for
Maven
people in the Maven ecosystem
Right.
to help them do their migrations. Yeah.
Well, we need new versions because that's what we talk about on the podcast. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
that's what we do if no.
So our goal will be to come out with Groovy 5 before Gradle 8 comes
Sorry.
out.
Oh,
So that when they do release, there'll still be one behind.
just to
Yeah.
confuse them again. Yeah, very
Just-
good,
yeah,
very good.
That's got to be our goal.
So you just teased it. When's Groovy 5 coming out?
So we Groovy 4 was about a year after Groovy 3, so it wasn't that long.
Oh,
And if we're trying to get the cadence, not quite as fast as what Java's been doing lately,
yeah.
but a bit faster than what it might have been in a few years ago. So we're trying not to wait too long, but it probably won't be 12 months. It'll probably be like 18 months from Groovy 4.
No pressure on that. I mean, one thing I do have to mention, Paul has been very active putting up blog posts using Groovy for a very wide variety of applications, everything from AI to DSLs to, I mean, just on and on. What have you done about, how many did you say you did in the?
I think it's 20 in the last 20 weeks. So the goal is try to do about a year with one a week, but
Yeah, and
it's not a hard goal. We'll see how we
I
go.
wish I could do that.
I'm glad I'm not doing that. Oh my god, it's bad enough for me to write a newsletter every week. Anyway, so these are all on the Apache blog.
I'm looking for other people to step in and.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I'll get back to you. Yeah. But I mean, these are all on the Apache blog, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
blogs.apache.org or whatever,
Yeah.
except that that's a terrible thing to search. So just Google Apache blog Paul King, you'll probably find them, right?
I guess so, yeah.
That's what Google does, so. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Let him. But they've really been excellent. And of course, the easier way to do it, by the way, is to check the your Twitter feed,
Yeah.
which is
that's
at
probably
Paul.
the easiest. Paul K _assert.
Yeah,
Anyway.
at any rate, ASERT, just one S, and then it's not a Groovy assert, right? So.
No, no.
At any rate, all of them are tweeted in there. And
Yep.
if we do somehow muster together some show notes, we'll put a couple of them in the
Yeah. we can put a
show
few
notes
in
with
there.
that. That would take work too, though, so we'll have to see about that, you know. I mean, it's gonna be months before our next podcast anyway, so maybe we gotta go through.
We've got
this.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to bring up? Again, we're trying to keep this relatively short and sweet for the listeners.
I
this
did
time.
just confirm that, yes, we are in fact hiring an OCI for the 2GM team.
Ooh,
So if you want to work with me and Puneet and Paul and see Ken a lot, you know, head over to our website.
I consider myself friend of the family.
Absolutely.
You know, the crazy uncle they leave out of it. You know, we don't talk about that one, you know. But at any rate, thank you very much for listening to this. This will be on YouTube in the normal place in the Groovy Podcast section, whatever we call it. And of course, it'll be on all your podcast players as soon as we can get it together. We'll probably get that together tomorrow sometime, I'm guessing, or maybe I'll be on a plane, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was really nice seeing everybody and thank you all
Same.
for coming and enjoying the podcast.
Thanks ApacheCon for organizing
Yeah,
everything.
right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It was a
And, you know,
wonderful conference and
there was
I
swag.
finally got a chance to meet Mr. Ken.
You keep
Kousen.
saying that.
I'm excited. You know,
You
I'm a fan
forget.
of you.
But we've met many times.
Yeah, but it's like after 3 years. right?
You forget about me? Is that the thing? Or is it hysterical amnesia? You're trying to put me out of your mind, you know? One or the other, I don't know. It's like, I've talked about you to my wife and everything. Well,
Are
yeah,
you
but that
there?
we're not gonna bring up. Yeah, that may not work out. Okay, but at any rate, thank you very much for coming. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.